We are back, and it is just days away from UFC Fight Night. Derrick Lewis versus Tallison Teixeira, which means it's time for me to break down every single fight on this card, starting with the first fight going all the way up to the main event of the evening, Lewis versus Teixeira, as I just said. So, without further ado, let me get right into it. We had an off week last week, and I'm ready to fucking watch some fights, man. I don't know about you guys, but last week was pretty bleak. Without some fights on the weekend, there's not much to do. So I can't wait to get into this one. First fight of the night, we've got Fatima Kline versus Melissa Martinez. And I'm actually going to be doing this one over in Topology.com just because I like the layout they got there a bit better. So, first fight of the night, minus 1,200 favorite. Great way to start the card here. But Fatima Kline, I don't think it's entirely deserved for her to be the minus 1,200. That's an insane betting line for anyone. But she did absolutely demolish Victoria Dudakova in her second fight in the UFC. And the first one was a short notice replacement against Jasmine Jasudavicius, where she did really hang in there to a decision loss, but it was a close fight. Even though it was a loss, there was moments where she looked good in the fight. And Melissa Martinez, she's coming off of a win against Alice Ardeline, but she lost to Elise Reed. She's a cardio kickboxing queen, and I think she's just at a completely lower level than Fatima Kline, who is pure violence, man. I think she's this chick is the fucking real deal. I think she's going to get a finish over Melissa Martinez in the third or second round by TKO. But it probably could be a decision. I would not be surprised. But Fatima Kline wins this one. Do not fucking get ahead of yourselves here. Second fight on the card, Mike Davis versus Mitch Ramirez. Mitch Ramirez. Oh, man. Thiago Moises beat him in his last fight by leg kicks. He's going up against Mike Davis, who lost his last fight in January or February against Fares Siam. But Fares Siam's pretty good. Mike Davis, my biggest gripe with him in this entire time has been his inactivity. He shows up every year pretty much and collects a check, and then you don't see him for another 365 days, and then he's back in the cage, and then you don't see him for another year. That's been his career for the past couple years, 2019, 2020, 2021. We're even skipping a couple here. 2019, 2021, 2022, 2024, 2025. So that's pretty bad. He's going really inactive, but now he's back in the cage is my point. He's kind of being active this year. This is his first time since 2019 that he's been in there twice in a year. And I think he's getting it done here. I think he's going to look good. He's going to have a chip on his shoulder. He lost his last fight. Didn't look particularly good in it either. So he's going to be trying to show some people that he's not terrible. People were talking shit about him, even though he's Mike fucking Davis. He's that guy. So I think he's going to come and show it, Mitch Ramirez, that Mike Davis is that guy. And he's going to win this fight by decision. That's going to be the pick. Moving on. Kennedy Njokuani versus Walter Walker. And this hurts, man. I would love for Walter Walker to win this one. This is a tough one, though. I wouldn't be surprised if Kennedy lost, if he got caught in a cheeky submission or something. But I've got to say Kennedy wins this one. Walter Walker lost his first fight in the UFC to Lucas Brzeski. Looked pretty bad on the feet, and I feel like Kennedy Njokuani could have a bit better striking than Lucas Brzeski. I can't go based off that, but I don't think Walter Walker is going to get him down as easy as he got down Junior Tafa in his last fight, or Dante O'Mays in the fight after that. He did look really good in that Dante O'Mays one, but it's Dante O'Mays, and I don't think he's going to get down Kennedy Njokuani, and he has a 6-inch reach advantage on Walter Walker, so that's kind of tough. I'll say Kennedy Njokuani wins this one by TKO in the second round. That's going to be the official pick. Wouldn't be surprised if Walter Walker pulled it off, though. Who knows? Moving on. Lauren Murphy versus Eduarda Moura. I hate this picture on Topology. Just so you guys know, that's not what this is what Eduarda Moura looks like. But Topology's using like a fucking 6-year-old photo of her when she was a little kid, man. She's fighting Lauren Murphy. Lauren Murphy, she hasn't been in the cage since 2022, or 2023, sorry. Eduarda Moura, she was in there against Veronica Hardy at the tail end of 2024 and beat Veronica Hardy. Lost to Denise Gomez, but she did look pretty good, and like she's a pretty big prospect, like size-wise. So like Lauren Murphy is kind of a brick shithouse build, but she's 42 years old. I don't like that. You guys know I don't like picking any old fighters. Like, it's a big gripe of mine. You hit that 39-year mark, that you're starting to. That's kind of over the hill for you. So I don't think I'm gonna be picking Lauren Murphy over the surging prospect that's a decade younger than her. I'm gonna say Eduarda Moura pulls it off against Lauren Murphy by decision. Will be the official pick. Moving on to the next fight, Jake Mathews versus Chidi and Njokuani. 21-7 Jake Mathews versus 25-10 Chidi and Njokuani. Jake Mathews coming off of a win against Francisco Prado, beat Phil Rowe before that. Chidi and Njokuani 3 months ago knocked out Eliza Zaleski. Really good, really brutal finish over Eliza Zaleski. He beat Jared Gooden before that, beat Reese McKee before that. Chidi's kind of coming into his own in welterweight. He's looked pretty good in his last fight. The first 2 fights were kind of stinkers in welterweight, but you know, he was kind of finding his mark, finding how he liked to fight at welterweight and his gas tank and all that. And now he's got a 7-inch reach advantage over Jake Mathews. You know, 4-inch height advantage over Jake Mathews. This is big, you know. He's gonna look like a completely different weight class compared to Jake Mathews, and that's like his advantage because he's gonna be cutting a lot more weight. But he's got nasty striking, and I don't think Jake Mathews has the. He's got output, but I don't think he's gonna be getting into distance as much as Chidi and Njokuani is gonna be piecing him up at range, finding like really heavy strikes on him, and I think Chidi's gonna. He's going to win this fight. 1 KO loss ever in the first round. When was that? That was a while ago. Back Kevin Lee, 2016. I'll say Chidi is going to win this one by decision. I don't see another KO. He just got one against Eliza Zaleski. Jake Mathews, he hasn't been KO'd in a while. And he's a pretty smart fighter usually. I'll say Chidi wins this one by decision, but he's going to win. He is going to win. I think the odds are kind of, they're playable there for -120 for Chidi. I might be playing that if it's that close. Moving on, Chris Curtis versus Max Griffin. What a fight. Chris Curtis 31-12 versus Max Griffin 20-11. 2 losses in a row for Chris Curtis. Romy Kopylov head kick and Brendan Allen split decision loss. Max Griffin coming off a submission loss to Michael Chiesa, his first ever submission loss in his career. I don't like Max Griffin anymore. You know, that Michael Chiesa fight, that was like, alright, you're just a donut head. You're an absolute knob. You're terrible. And I feel like he put himself into some pretty bad positions against Michael Chiesa and ended up getting submitted because of that. Chris Curtis, man, he's a good boxer too. Like, his last couple fights, his output has really come up a lot. And the worrying thing about Chris Curtis is that, like, that clip went viral like a week or 2 ago of him pressing a random regional fighter with Sean Strickland. So it's like, how focused are you really on this camp? You know, that's neither here nor there. You know, that's just one night out of how many nights in a training camp. His energy's up, his ego's up. You know, that might be a good thing. You know, body language expert Keon Kimura, that's me. He might be thinking, man, Chris Curtis, he's kind of amped up. My point, I think Chris Curtis is going to win this fight. I'm not going to ramble anymore. I'll say Chris Curtis takes this one home by decision. He's going to outbox my Max Griffin, who couldn't tell a fucking circle from a square. This dude's a caveman. He's an absolute knob. nothing's going on behind these eyes, man. Chris Curtis is going to be able to outbox him to a decision victory for sure. Moving on to the next fight on the card, we've got Junior Tafa versus Tuco Tokkos. So, Tuco Tokkos, man, I get, he's 2 losses in a row in the UFC, Navajo Sterling and Umar Sy. Both of these dudes are prospects that have not lost in the UFC yet and have looked pretty good, right? Junior Tafa, he just beat Sean Sharaf 8 months ago. That was like a short notice replacement fight. Can't remember who he was supposed to fight, but like we've seen him against grapplers at heavyweight, right? This dude is a quitter. He's a sore loser. We saw what happened when he lost to Walter Walker. That was a sad performance and an even sadder response to the performance. He's slapping Walter Walker and he's just being an absolute bitch. I don't like Junior Tafa because of that. And man, he posted an Instagram photo where he has a 6-pack at light heavyweight. Who would have thunk? He's losing weight coming down to light heavyweight because he was at heavyweight before. Who'd have thunk? He might be a little skinnier. Tuco has a 4-inch reach advantage. He's got a grappling advantage for sure. This is a must-win for Tuco, man. Like, he's got to win this fight. He's going to fight smart. And Junior Tafa sucks in grappling. He's terrible. He might have a nice overhand on the feet, but I think Tuco's going to close range. He's going to get a takedown. He's going to submit Junior Tafa in the first round or the second round. Under 1.5 rounds, we're getting Gorgeous George. I'm saying we're getting Gorgeous George tomorrow from Tuco Tokkos, and he's going to get a submission win over Junior Tafa. That's going to be the pick. Moving on. Vitor Petrino versus Austen Lane. 11-2 Vitor Petrino versus 13-6 Austen Lane. Huge favorite, Vitor Petrino. This dude is coming off of 2 losses in a row. Anthony Smith, Dustin Jacoby. That Anthony Smith one, he put his head into a guillotine in the first minute of the fight. Absolute donut head, this dude. And Dustin Jacoby, he was winning that fight against Dustin Jacoby. And I don't know what he was thinking in the 3rd round, but he ends up just running into a right cross from Dustin Jacoby and getting knocked out. Absolutely abysmal. But Austen Lane, I don't see him out wrestling Vitor Petrino for 3 rounds straight. And at some point he's going to be on the feet with this guy, right? There's no way Vitor Petrino doesn't knock out Austen Lane. There's absolutely no way. I'm willing to bet. I'll be careful here. I'm willing to bet Vitor Petrino takes Austen Lane out of there in under half a round, I could see. That might be giving it a bit too... under 1.5 rounds. Under 1.5 rounds for Vitor Petrino by knockout. That's going to be the pick. I despise Austen Lane. I despise him, and I will not give him credit. Vitor Petrino is going to knock him out. Moving on. Nate the Train Landwehr versus Morgan Charriere. 18-6 versus 20-11-1. Coming off a loss to Doohoo Choi. Nate Landwehr. He beat Jamal Emmers. Pretty good win as well, that was. Jamal Emmers was on a tear going against Nate Landwehr. That rhymed. Morgan Charriere, though, he's coming off of a loss to Nathaniel Wood where he was getting knocked down willy-nilly, but made his way to a decision. He did make his way to a decision, but he was getting knocked down a lot in that fight. Did not look that good. But Nate the Train, I think, is over the hill at this point. I think he's regressing. 37 years old, that's getting up there. You guys know what I'm going to say. Morgan Charriere is 29 years old, and man, he needs a good win. I don't know. He does need a good win. This will be a tough fight for him, though. Nate the Train is a beast. But I'm going to say Morgan Charriere takes home a decision victory. That's going to be the pick. Moving on to Calvin Kattar versus Steve Garcia. 23-9 Calvin Kattar versus 17-5 Steve Garcia. Lost 4 of his last 5 fights, Calvin Kattar did. And Steve Garcia won all 5 of his last 5 fights. 37 years old versus 33 years old. This is a tough fight. I mean, is it though? I get Calvin Kattar. He's got a chin on him. But like, he's going to be eating fucking bombs from Steve Garcia, man. And I feel like at this point in Calvin's career, after the knee injury that he took against Arnold Allen, it's hard to recover from something like that. Your body just isn't the same as it was before. I don't think his speed, I don't think his striking capabilities are quite as good as they were before because of the lack of mobility he has in his hips and his knees and his legs now. I think Steve Garcia is going to knock him out in the first round. I hate to say it. This is going to be a beatdown. Steve Garcia is going to... It might be a TKO or something, body shots against the fence or something, but Steve Garcia, this dude's undeniable. He's undeniable, and I don't know, man, because I've picked against him a couple times in these, like I was a fool, Kyle Nelson. He's Canadian, I get it. I have to back my Canadian brethren, man. That was back of the head punches. DQ win for Kyle Nelson. I see it. But Steve Garcia, I think, is going to knock out Calvin Kattar. I don't think Calvin Kattar is going to have a turning back the clock performance this Saturday. I think it's kind of over for Calvin Kattar, as sad as it is. This is a must-win for him, though. His back's against the wall. This could be an interesting one. But I'll say Steve Garcia takes him out in the first round. If it's not the first round, it's the second round. Moving on to the co-main event, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Gabriel Bonfim. I always mix up Gabriel and his brother, man. His brother was the one that lost to Sadikov? Anyways, Stephen Thompson versus Gabriel Bonfim. 17-8 Stephen Thompson versus 17-1 Gabriel Bonfim. Those are wildly different records. But Stephen Thompson does have a 2.5-inch reach advantage. But he's 42 years old, nearly 43, closer to 42 actually. But Gabriel Bonfim is 15 years younger than him, man. And why are they doing that so much this card? There's like 3 fights that it's like a decade, 15 years, and another 15 years. There's 3 fights like that. Why are they doing so much of that this card? The main event too, there's 4 fights. Why is this card the young versus the old guys? Why? What did they do, man? I'm not picking any of the old guys. I'm picking all the young guys. Picking all of the young guys. Every one of them. Every one of them, man. I don't think Stephen Thompson is going to beat Gabriel Bonfim. I get he lost to Nicholas Dalby. But I think he got better from that performance. That's a loss that he needed to take. That's like, I need to improve my cardio. He loses to a guy that exploits his cardio. That's 2 years ago at this point. And I think Gabriel Bonfim has made the changes and he's improved. We've seen his last 2 fights. He did absolutely manhandle Chaos Williams. That was brutal. And the screenshot that we had, like, you can go back, like, in the fucking picture of Chaos Williams' face after the fight. That just speaks for itself, man. Gabriel Bonfim has made changes. And, like, Stephen Thompson can't wrestle. That's the one thing. Like, he's 42 years old. That's something that he just can't change it at this point in his career. He's not able to wrestle. He was from a different time where you could just have one art, Now you have to really mix everything together. And Gabriel Bonfim is going to be able to do that. He's going to be able to strike with Stephen Thompson. He might have a little trouble with the karate style, but he's going to be able to mix in takedowns. And Stephen Thompson can't defend takedowns. So I'll say Gabriel Bonfim wins this fight, and he's going to submit Wonderboy in the 3rd round. Is going to be the pick. Moving on to the main event of the evening, Derrick Lewis versus Tallison Teixeira. 28-12, Derrick Lewis versus 8-0, Tallison Teixeira. This is a very interesting one. 15-year gap between the two of these guys. 15-year gap. There's so much more experience for Derrick Lewis, but a 4-inch reach advantage for Tallison Teixeira. I'm going to say it differently every time. 4-inch height advantage for Teixeira. And I think this dude, I'm not trying to overplay him at all. You go and watch his Dana White Contender Series fight. This dude moves around the octagon like differently than some of these big heavyweights. He's not just a fat blob. This dude is 6'7" with a skinny frame for heavyweight, but he's that big that's just how big he is. You know, he's a heavyweight guy with a skinny frame. He's not a fat blob like half of these heavyweights are, and I think he's gonna go on a run until like maybe his grappling gets checked by someone, and that's not gonna be Derrick Lewis. Maybe a Teixiera. Maybe Teixiera could take out Teixeira, who knows? But I think Teixeira is going to knock out Derrick Lewis in the first or second round. We're not seeing a long fight. There's going to be a card full of finishes, I think, too. But I think Teixeira, man, I'm not picking Derrick Lewis just because it's Derrick Lewis, man. I think this is the passing of the guard. You know, this card itself is supposed to be the young guys beating the old guys. That's what these matchmakers want. They want all these young prospects to knock out all these old guys and get them out of there. And we'll see some retirement ceremonies. Maybe they have a Derrick Lewis retirement video set up. Maybe they have a Wonder Boy retirement video set up. Who knows? They didn't give a lot of these other guys retirement videos, so maybe not. Maybe they won't have that. Maybe I'm being too optimistic here, but I think Teixeira is going to knock him out, and I think that that's what they're setting it up. I think they want that to happen, and that's why they put this matchup together anyways. That's why they put this card together. They want all these young guys winning, and I'm going to back them. I think the young guys do win. This is a card of young guys beating the old guys up. Let me know what you guys think of my picks. That's going to be the pick, Teixeira by knockout over Derrick Lewis. Let me know what you guys thought. If you liked this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. We'll be back here for more soon. If you want a longer video, go over to Sparring Sessions, and you'll see not only my picks, but you'll also see my friend Big Will as well as Dax. So go over to Sparring Sessions on YouTube or Spotify, and you can check out our prediction show for that. And yeah, thank you for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Have a good one.